What's stopping you at work? What's holding you back or preventing you from succeeding and having all the opportunities and progress that you desire? We're talking about those behaviors, habits, and attitudes that may be impacting you. And this time we're talking about alpha behavior. Alpha has a lot of connotations, but some of the descriptives for it are aggressive, bossy, demanding, controlling, overbearing, dominating, competitive, like overly competitive, always have to win, always have to be right, and dismissing other people's contributions. It's that behavior where you think other people need to do exactly what you say, or where you take command instead of requesting, where you take over all the time. You need control in most situations, and you expect people to listen to you, to obey you, to conform to whatever you have laid out in front of them. We're not focusing on gender stereotypes. This is behaviors and attitudes, and anybody may have these alpha tendencies. Now, it's also true that there are some influences, some factors in how you were raised, what age you are, where you're based in the world, what type of traditional upbringing you may have that can influence why you may have more alpha behaviors or why you may have more command and control leadership. So, generational influences, the baby boomers and some of the early Gen X were raised in systems that rewarded obedience and hierarchy and discipline. So they tend to know how to act that way and lead that way. Their workplaces appreciated and rewarded loyalty, chain of command, and respect for authority. In addition, anybody who's in the military or has a military or a uniform service background tends to be trained to have explicit command structures to make sure that decisions are centralized and that people do exactly as they have been taught and don't step out of line. Now, that's important in the military. That's important in very high risk situations. Command and control has a purpose for safety. It has a purpose for efficiency. We want people to know exactly who gets to make the decision and exactly who tells us A, B, or C. You want that sort of control if it's a high risk safety situation. But in the workplace, in the modern workplace, in the corporate workplace, not across all industries, but generally speaking, that is an outdated mode of leadership. You can take components of alpha and command and control and you weave them in. But when you are only directing instead of encouraging dialogue, when rank and position has more importance than what somebody has to contribute, when nobody is allowed to suggest different ways to do work, the procedure is a procedure, then that's where it gets to be a little bit of a problem. And younger generations are not interested in working in those environments. Another component is your culture and upbringing. Maybe you come from a very traditional background or from a geography where hierarchy and authority are still the primary standard. If that's the case, you're probably going to have some of these behaviors in your own personal work style as well as your leadership style. So evaluate yourself and your behaviors. Do you recognize some of these things about yourself? Let's talk about a couple behaviors and how you might consider approaching them differently to help evolve your own alpha tendencies and command and control style. One is if you dominate conversations. If you're constantly butting in or making sure that your voice is the loudest, can you notice that? Can you pause before interjecting? Can you practice listening to others and saying, hey, could you tell me more? What's your perspective? Allow other voices to speak instead of being the only voice that speaks. You don't have to be the loudest voice in the room to be effective. Maybe you have an intimidating presence. Now, this could be a physical presence. Maybe you're very large, very muscly, and people immediately react to you. But there's a lot of people out there who are intimidating and they have a smaller stature. So I want you to notice your own body language. When you walk into a room or a crowd, how do others react to you? Do they make space? Do they step back? Build awareness of your own physical presence, as well as your tone, your own body language. And you may have to say, if you are a physically intimidating individual, you may have to verbally say, hey, I know I may look intimidating, but I'm here to work with you and I want to hear your opinion. If it's not a physical intimidation, you may have to use a modulated tone of voice, be careful with your words, and use phrases that encourage psychological trust. It's okay, disagree with me. I want to hear your opinion. You can be powerful and humble at the same time. What about controlling? Controlling everything around you. This is probably the one that I see the most in the workplace. People who need to control everything, they are constantly telling you how it needs to be done and then checking to see if you did it right and potentially criticizing or correcting. Perfectionists in general are in this group, but if you hold the belief that there's only one way to do it right and it's typically your way, then listen up. The way to overcome this is to allow imperfection. Start small. If you're really uncomfortable that somebody is going to screw something up so hugely that you just can't be uninvolved in it, then take a lower risk decision, take a lower risk activity, and sit down and talk with the group that you're assigning this to. What are your expectations? Ask for their approaches, and then all of you agree to what's the right approach in this situation. Once they know what's expected, and once you step back, and that's the thing, you have to step back and allow them to try it in the agreed upon way, meeting the agreed upon outcomes and timeline, you start to create trust both for yourself and with them. And you'll be able to use this and apply this in other situations. Leadership is about influence, not control. What about needing to win all the time, being that person who's like super competitive? Maybe you can look at reframing that as collective progress is part of the outcome too. It's hard to stop yourself from competing, right? That might be in your nature, so it will take a little bit more work, but maybe you can compete with yourself and encourage others, recognize and celebrate other people's successes, maybe help a few people who are stumbling. That could help you in an overall collaborative situation, and you'll still be winning. You can say things like, hey, this was your idea and it made all the difference. And as you start to approach that, you will back off having to be the only person who wins at all times. Collaboration is a strength, not a compromise. Lead yourself. Check and say, am I doing any of these things? Do I have these habits, behaviors, and attitudes? Learn more about those habits and how other people perceive them and how it may be impacting you at work. And then take some of these tips, go research and get other guidance as well, and begin to shift your behavior, begin to shift your alpha behavior so you'll start seeing real results. What about leadership? If you're a leader and you use a command and control leadership style, it's very traditional, hierarchical, and top down. You are emphasizing structure and authority and compliance. That's rigid, and today's workforce doesn't do as well. It means you're focusing on control and discipline. Now, generally speaking, this is with good reason. It's because you believe it will make things more efficient. Maybe it's been tested in the past and worked out okay. But it tends to create situations where information becomes siloed, people don't trust each other, and there's a decrease in innovation and collaboration. Now, it is more effective in crisis situations. So if you work in healthcare emergency, maybe a high risk environment, perhaps you work in a plant or for an energy sector where following the rules rigidly is very important, then keep elements of that command and control in there. The question is, can you also weave in opportunities for collaboration to hear other people's voices and to allow different people to have a chance at managing, running, and contributing? Modern work environments, particularly those who aren't in industries that need more command and control, demand agility and creativity and psychological safety. They want inclusion, they want balance. And so the older model of command and control is stifling. It stifles innovation and engagement and retention. So as you evolve from this, you will have to practice your own leadership behaviors, shifting from control based all the time to some empowerment and trust and developing your own mindset, skills, and behaviors so that your leadership style evolves. You can shift from, I have all the answers to, let me listen more, let me ask questions, let me see if there are other approaches here that we can incorporate. If compliance is critical and it's a goal, great, have procedures for that. Demand and mandate that those procedures are followed. And then look for areas in your organization where that compliance is less critical so you can include others more. You can engage them. You can allow alternate types of ownership. Then look for ways to empower your team. Making these shifts will require you to work on your emotional intelligence, your coaching and facilitation skills, and creating psychological safety. You will need to shift towards collaborative decision making and listening more, looking for different types of communication. You're shifting from control all the time to a trusted environment. It's going to take practice. Now, again, I hear leaders say, well, I can't trust people to do it right. And that's why I have to be so involved all the time. Did you clearly outline your expectations? Did you say what good looks like? Did you sit down with the group who's going to be in charge of this and ask for their opinions and their approach? Can you agree on what the approach is, the deadline or timeline by when that needs to be done, and then take a step back? You'll check in, let them know that you're available to offer your opinion, but don't step in and point out the problems. Don't step in and solve the problems. When they ask for feedback, give it, but regulate your emotions when you're giving feedback. Don't be angry or sarcastic or dismissive. Those are things that you can work on as you are shifting from command and control. You're going to have to unlearn old habits. It will not be a switch that you can flip and go from one style to the next. You can pick a few areas and slowly incorporate them. Find trusted individuals on your team or your mentors and say, hey, this is what I'm working on. Can you give me feedback when you observe certain behaviors? Both the old behaviors that I fall back on, as well as when I've really done a good job pulling in and embracing the new leadership behaviors. Train, go after this with all of your intention. Invest in coaching, training, mentoring so that you can adopt and learn. And then as you model this, set the expectations for your team to begin to shift out of that alpha command and control style as well. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. In modern leadership, it's less about being in control and more about creating environments where people choose to bring their very best because it's a trusted, collaborative environment where you influence others. Learn how to coach your team towards better behaviors and more productive outcomes.